In these services, we're looking at people who've had an encounter with Jesus and the effect the encounter had on them. And the last time we looked at Sosthenes and how he changed from being a persecutor of Paul to a co-author of the first letter to the Corinthians. But tonight we're going to look at the Easter story, and particularly Pontius Pilate, but in a slightly different way than normal. So the format's going to be slightly different. Rather than do the Bible reading first, I'll say a bit about Pontius Pilate and then read the story of his encounter with Jesus, all of which took place on a single day, but compiled from all four Gospels into a single story. So who was Pontius Pilate? Well, he was actually the fifth governor of the Roman province of Judea, serving under the Emperor Tiberius. And the post of governor was relatively low prestige, and nothing is known of the circumstances that led to Pilate's appointment to this governorship. The Jewish historian Josephus states that Pilate governed for 10 years, and these are traditionally dated from 26 to about 36-37 AD, making him one of the two longest serving governors of the province. Now, although Pilate is probably the best attested governor of Judea, few sources on his rule have actually survived. He appears to have belonged to a well-known and well-attested Pontius family. Josephus and also the philosopher Philo of Alexandria both mention incidents of tension and violence between the Jewish population and Pilate's administration. And there are references to these in the Gospels as well about rebellions. Many of these involve Pilate acting in ways that offended the Jewish sensibilities, or the religious sensibilities of the Jews. And the Gospels record, of course, that Pilate ordered the crucifixion of Jesus at some point, the date's not specific, in his office. And Josephus and the Roman historian Tacitus also record this information, so it must have been a significant event worth noting both by Jews and Romans. According to Josephus, Pilate's removal from office eventually occurred because he violently suppressed an armed Samaritan movement at Mount Gerizim. He was sent back to Rome by the legate of Syria, to whom he reported, to answer for this before Tiberius. However, before he arrived in Rome, Tiberius died. So nothing is known for certain what happened to him after this, but most historians believe that Pilate simply retired after his dismissal, and they have differing assessments of Pilate as a governor. While some believe he was a particularly brutal and ineffective governor, others argue that his long time in office means he must have been reasonably competent and kept things under control, or he would have been removed. So that's a bit of background to Pilate. So we're going to talk about how did he encounter Jesus and what effect did that, or what happened in the encounters, because there are multiple ones. So rather than actually me talk through this tonight, I'm going to read a compilation from all four Gospels. Then the Jews led Jesus from Caiaphas to the palace of the Roman governor. By now it was early morning, and to avoid ceremonial uncleanness, the Jews did not enter the palace. They wanted to be able to eat the Passover. So Pilate came out to them and asked, "What charges are you bringing against this man?" "If he were not a criminal," they replied, "we would not have handed him over to you." And they began to accuse him, saying, "We have found this man subverting our nation. He opposes payment of taxes to Caesar and claims to be Christ, a king." The chief priests accused him of many things. So Pilate asked him, "Aren't you going to answer? See how many things they are accusing you of." But Jesus still made no reply, and Pilate was amazed. While Pilate was sitting on the judge's seat, His wife sent him this message: "Don't have anything to do with that innocent man, for I have suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him." Then Pilate announced to the chief priests and the crowd, "I find no basis for a charge against this man." But they insisted, "He stirs up the people all over Judea by his teaching. He started in Galilee and has come all the way here." On hearing this, Pilate asked if the man was a Galilean. When he learned that Jesus was under Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who was also in Jerusalem at that time. When Herod saw Jesus, he was greatly pleased, because for a long time he had been wanting to see him. From what he had heard about him, he hoped to see him perform some miracle. He plied him with many questions, but Jesus gave him no answer. The chief priests and teachers of the law were standing there, vehemently accusing him. Then Herod and his soldiers ridiculed and mocked him. Dressing him in an elegant robe, they sent him back to Pilate. That day, Herod and Pilate became friends. Before this, they had been enemies. Pilate called together the chief priests, the rulers, and the people, and said to them, "You brought me this man as one who is inciting the people to rebellion. I have examined him in your presence, and have found no basis for your charges against him. Neither has Herod, for he sent him back to us. As you can see, he has done nothing to deserve death. Therefore, I will punish him and then release him." Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged. The soldiers twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head. They clothed him in a purple robe and went up to him again and again, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they struck him in the face. Once more, Pilate came out and said to the Jews, "Look, I am bringing him out to you to let you know that I find no basis for a charge against him." When Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe, Pilate said to him, "Here is the man." As soon as the chief priests and their officials saw him, they shouted, "Crucify! Crucify!" But Pilate answered, "I find no basis for a charge against him. Take him yourselves and judge him by your own law." "But we have no right to execute anyone," the Jews objected. "We have a law, and according to that law he must die, because he claimed to be the Son of God." This happened so that the words Jesus had spoken, indicating the kind of death he was going to die, would be fulfilled. When Pilate heard this, he was even more afraid. He went back inside the palace, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the King of the Jews?" "Is that your own idea?" Jesus asked. "Or did others talk to you about me?" "Am I a Jew?" Pilate replied. "It was your people and your chief priests who handed you over to me. What is it you have done?" Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jews. But now my kingdom is from another place." "You are a king then," said Pilate. Jesus answered, "You are right in saying I am a king. In fact, for this reason I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." "What is truth?" Pilate asked. "Where do you come from?" he asked Jesus. But Jesus gave him no answer. "Do you refuse to speak to me?" Pilate said. "Don't you realize I have power either to free you or to crucify you?" Jesus answered, "You would have no power over me if it were not given to you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin." From then on, Pilate tried to free Jesus. He went out again to the Jews and said, "I find no basis for a charge against him. But it is your custom for me to release one prisoner at the time of the Passover. Do you want me to release the King of the Jews?" Knowing it was out of envy that the chief priests had handed Jesus over to him. They shouted back, "No, not him. Give us Barabbas." Now Barabbas was in prison with the insurrectionists who had committed murder in the uprising. "What shall I do then with the one you call the King of the Jews?" Pilate asked them. "Crucify him," they shouted. "Why? What crime has he committed?" asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, "Crucify him!" Wanting to release Jesus, Pilate appealed to them again, but they kept shouting, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" For the third time he spoke to them. "Why? What crime has this man committed? I have found in him no grounds for the death penalty. Therefore I will have him punished and then release him." But with loud shouts, they insistently demanded that he be crucified and kept shouting, "If you let this man go, you are no friend of Caesar. Anyone who claims to be a king opposes Caesar." When Pilate heard this, he brought Jesus out and sat down on the judge's seat, a place known as the stone pavement, which in Aramaic is Gabbatha. It was a day of preparation of Passover week, about the 6th hour. "Here is your king," Pilate said to the Jews. But they shouted, take him away, crucify him." "Shall I crucify your king?" Pilate asked. "We have no king but Caesar," the chief priests answered. When Pilate saw he was getting nowhere, that instead an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. "I am innocent of this man's blood," he said. "It is your responsibility." All the people answered, "Let his blood be on us and on our children." So Pilate, wanting to satisfy the crowd, decided to grant their demand. He released Barabbas, the man who had been thrown into prison for insurrection and murder, the one they asked for. Finally, Pilate handed him over to them to be crucified. So the soldiers took charge of Jesus. Carrying his own cross, he went out to the place of the skull, which in Aramaic is called Golgotha. Here they crucified him, and with him 2 others, one on each side and Jesus in the middle. Pilate had a notice prepared and fastened to the cross. It read, "Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." Many of the Jews read this sign, for the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city, and the sign was written in Aramaic, Latin, and Greek. The chief priests of the Jews protested to Pilate, "Do not write the King of the Jews." But this man claimed to be King of the Jews. Pilate answered, "What I have written, I have written." It was preparation day, that is, the day before the Sabbath. So as evening approached, Joseph of Arimathea, a prominent member of the council, who himself was waiting for the kingdom of God, went boldly to Pilate and asked for Jesus' body. Pilate was surprised to hear that he was already dead. Summoning the centurion, he asked if Jesus had already died. When he learned from the centurion that it was so, he gave the body to Joseph. So Joseph bought some linen cloth, took down the body, wrapped it in the linen, and placed it in his own new tomb that he had cut out of the rock. He rolled a big stone in front of the entrance to the tomb and went away. So what effect do we think this encounter had on Pontius Pilate? Well, as a Roman official who was in charge of a province with a history of rebellions, Pilate had to juggle alliances with various factions and rulers. The fact that we are told that he and Herod became friends after Jesus' trials indicates he was prepared to adapt to changing circumstances. He certainly seems to have tried hard to avoid sentencing Jesus to death, stating several times he found no evidence to convict him. He had the power and authority to release Jesus, just as we heard about Gallio last week rejecting the charges against Paul in Corinth. However, Pilate finally gave in to the crowd to avoid a riot, which would have reflected badly on him. His stand against the chief priests by not changing the words about Jesus on the cross indicates he was not adverse to standing up to them. And that's interesting because as governor, Pilate had the right to appoint the Jewish high priest. And unlike his predecessor, Pilate actually retained the same high priest, Caiaphas, for his whole tenure in office. Caiaphas indeed would be removed following Pilate's own removal from the governorship. This would seem to indicate that Caiaphas and the priests of the Sadducees were actually reliable allies to Pilate, despite the tensions between them at times. And the last twist to the encounter we read about is that Pilate gives the body of Jesus to Joseph. The bodies of those executed were generally refused burial and were thrown out onto the city rubbish heap. The fact that Pilate allows Joseph to give Jesus a proper burial may indicate he recognized he was innocent and did not deserve to die. But Pilate put his position and political expediency before justice. We spoke quite a lot recently in the morning prayer sessions about people having choice. Well, Pilate had the choice of what to do with Jesus, to release him or condemn him. But he made his choice based on his circumstances, not on the evidence. So, a couple of questions to think about. We're told not to judge people, but to leave it to God. But how do we regard Pilate? And are we prepared to stand up against injustice, even if it has consequences for us?